Today we're going to be continuing on with our compound and complex practice assignments. So far we've really been focused on the coordinating conjunctions, or the fanboys. Today we're going to move on and start looking at conjunctive adverbs, or the THAMOs. So we want to start with what exactly are conjunctive adverbs. And these are really special words that their entire job is to show the relationship between two complete thoughts. Now that's a really important detail I want you to remember, is they most of the time deal with two complete thoughts. And if you look in those yellow boxes, you can see that they can occur in a lot of different places within these two complete thoughts. You can have them interrupting directly in between the thoughts. You can have them in the middle of the second one. They can be at the very end. They can be in quite a few different locations of these complete thoughts. Now the term THAMOs is just a mnemonic to help you remember some of the most common conjunctive adverbs, those being therefore, however, also, meanwhile, otherwise. But as you go through this, you'll really start picking up on what some of the other ones are. Conjunctive adverbs aren't always just one word. In fact, the phrase, in fact, is also an example of a conjunctive adverb, and that one's 2 words long. So as you move through this, you'll recognize the function of them, and that'll make it even easier to figure out what each word is. Now the punctuation differs quite a bit on these, and we'll cover those a little later in this video, but I'm sure as you've looked at these, you've noticed that sometimes we've got semicolons, commas, periods, double commas. So I'll go over those a little bit more in depth, but as we're practicing just identifying these words, pay attention to the punctuation around them. So here we want to just figure out what is the THAMOs in this sentence. So we have Jura Hoffman forgot her lunch today. She therefore will need to buy something at the cafeteria. The word therefore, representing that T of our THAMOs, is our conjunctive adverb. And you can see that this one set aside with commas on either side. Hermione Granger spent all weekend painting the set. Our play otherwise would have looked terrible. I made Katniss Everdeen clean her room this afternoon, otherwise she would never have done it. Now you'll notice otherwise on our previous one had commas on either side. Here we have a semicolon and a comma. See if you can guess as we go through what the difference is with these. Ryan Howard should leave for the airport now, otherwise he may run into some traffic. Now, if we move on, now let's start looking at some of that punctuation and what exactly job is going on with these different words. Now, when we have a conjunctive adverb interrupting a single thought, we place commas on both sides. It's almost like we're putting parenthesis marks around it, because we could take that word out and the sentence would still make sense. So here we have, it was time for dessert. Dan, however, didn't want an ice cream cone. We could just say, Dan didn't want an ice cream cone, and this sentence would still make sense. So that's kind of a good trick to think of. Things in parentheses give us extra information, so you can almost view those commas in that fashion. Sometimes THAMOs are actually joining up and connecting two complete thoughts. When it's doing that job, we want to have a good strong piece of punctuation, a semicolon. Then we have however, followed by a comma, almost as if it was acting as an introductory phrase or clause, which we covered previously. So let's work on a couple of these together. So here they've bolded our THAMOs word for us, so you can see furthermore, this is a new THAMOs or conjunctive adverb. Now, we have to decide, is it connecting two complete thoughts or interrupting one? So here we have, we were tired of playing Scrabble, complete thought. Vincent Crabbe, furthermore, was beating us by 8 points. So here it's interrupting the second complete thought. So that one we want commas on either side of it. This one is doing the same thing. We have, here's our subject and here's the rest of our sentence. So this one's another interrupter. Jara Hoffman and I are playing chess. Meanwhile, our friends are getting bored of watching us. This one's different than the previous two. Here we have our semicolon and our comma. And our first complete thought, J.R. Hoffman and I are playing chess. And our second, our friends are getting bored of watching us. This word is connecting or between the two complete thoughts. So that's all this bubble is going to ask of you, is to just go through and select which one is the answer on these. So you can either fast forward me a little bit as I finish going through these, or you're welcome to pause, try and guess for yourself on these, or just kind of watch along however you wish. On some of these, it's really easy to just look at the punctuation and say like, oh, there's a semicolon. That one's connecting between two complete thoughts. You want to avoid doing too much of this because later on when they're challenging you to see if you actually know what's going on, they're going to mess some of the punctuation up. Well, on this one, they've got it correct. So make sure you still are reading the entire sentences, whether your internet is working or not. There we go. To see if it's doing one function or the other. Okay, now we'll be able to move on to that last bubble. Now our final one here is looking at commas with THAMOs. So this is the one where they're going to actually have us put into practice using those semicolon and commas. So first job is figuring out what function the word's doing. So here we have Aragorn just got a job at an ice cream parlor, one complete thought. Therefore, he spends his days making sundaes and banana splits. There's our second complete thought. Now, our THAMOs word is here and it's connecting those two complete thoughts. So we already have our semicolon. We are missing our comma. So we want to hit add a comma on this one. I recently taught Katniss Everdeen how to make friendship bracelets. As a result, she has been weaving little gifts all afternoon. As a result, here is our THAMOs. So remember, here we got three words coming up as our conjunctive adverb. It is connecting to complete. We want to make sure we're keeping that comma. So we've got our semicolon and our comma. Now here we have something different. Tolkien claims he saw a flying squirrel at the park, complete thought. He, however, doesn't have any evidence. So here's an interrupter. Okay, our however right here is interrupting that second one. Now we want commas on either side of it. This one already has double commas, so we want to say keep the comma. Here we've got one that's actually at the very end, and we always want to make sure we have a comma before those, kind of keeping it a little bit separate, because we could just say she still couldn't stack them into a tower without saying however at the end. So it's extra, so we're going to set it off with a comma. J.R. Hoffman wanted to start an ice skating club. There aren't any rinks in town, however. They've already got the comma, so that one's correct. I hope this was really helpful for you on the THAMOs, and as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.